1975 was the 10th NFL season for the Atlanta Falcons and the first full season for head coach Marion Campbell. It was also the first year for a very important part of the future of the Atlanta Falcons. And that would, of course, be number 10, the NFL's number 1 draft choice from California, Steve Bartkowski. The Falcons opened the season in St. Louis, where the explosive Cardinals set out to prove that they were worthy champions of the NFC East. St. Louis scored first, but Steve Bartkowski kept bringing the Falcons back. Dave Hampton rushed for 135 yards, and his second touchdown put Atlanta ahead in the third quarter, 20-13. But the Cardinals finally tied it, and as time ran out, Jim Bakken's third field goal of the day decided a heart-rending opening game, 23-20. Next came the home opener in Atlanta Stadium, one of the season's most beautiful days. The opponents were the Detroit Lions, a team the Falcons had not beaten in 7 tries. This time, Haskell Stanback's first carry of the game put the Falcons on top, and they stayed on top until the game's closing minutes. The Falcons led by 4 with just over a minute to play. But then fate came through for Detroit again as Altie Taylor squeezed across for the Lions. And the Falcons had to settle for their second consecutive 3-point loss, 17-14. Week 3 brought the New Orleans Saints to town, and Steve Bartkowski combined with crafty wide receiver Ken Burrell to give the Falcons another early lead. The game's decisive play came about when Bartkowski passed to Burrell for 15 yards. The ball popped free, but alert tight end Jim Mitchell scooped up the loose ball and trundled 50 yards to complete one of the year's most unusual plays. The Falcons defeated the Saints for the 10th time in 13 tries, and Jim Mitchell shared the glory with the unsung heroes. It's not often that an offensive guard like Laren Jackson gets a chance to spike the ball, and he made the most of his golden opportunity. The following week, the Falcons traveled west to San Francisco, where they forced the 49ers into 5 turnovers, including 4 interceptions, 2 of them by linebacker Greg Brazina. Steve Bartkowski celebrated his return to California with another touchdown to Jim Mitchell as the Falcons rolled to an impressive second consecutive victory, 17-3. The Falcons were now even on the season at 2-2 and might easily have been a perfect 4-0. As Steve Bartkowski enthused at the time, with a little more experience, we could go a long, long way. Week 5 found the Falcons in Los Angeles with a chance to tie for first place with the Rams. Playing with an injured left elbow, Steve Bartkowski was hindered also by 5 fumbles, numerous dropped passes, and 3 Los Angeles interceptions. Pat Sullivan relieved Bartkowski and completed 6 of 11, including a touchdown pass to rookie Alfred Jenkins. But the day belonged to the first-place Rams. Following their almost perfect day in San Francisco, suddenly in Los Angeles, the playoffs began to look a little farther away as the Rams defeated the Falcons 22-7. The undefeated Cincinnati Bengals were next in Atlanta, and Steve Bartkowski, again playing with an injured left elbow, got the Falcons an early lead with still another touchdown pass to Jim Mitchell. But Atlanta's elation was soon tempered by the news that on the touchdown play, Bartkowski's already banged-up left elbow had been hit and dislocated. Said Bartkowski, "Thank God it wasn't my right arm." The Falcons, who had been plagued by turnovers the previous week in Los Angeles, would again suffer from the same affliction. This time, there were 3 fumbles and 5 interceptions, one of which Cincinnati cornerback Ken Riley returned for the touchdown which tied the score at 7. Another interception set up the go-ahead score for the Bengals. Now trailing 14-7, and with Steve Bartkowski definitely out for at least several weeks, the Falcons turned to their third quarterback of the day, number 11, Kim McQuilkin. The second-year man from Lehigh engineered a fourth-quarter drive to the tying touchdown, which came by way of Jim Mitchell's second scoring catch of the day. Things were looking up for Atlanta, but then with only 2 minutes to play, another turnover resulted in Cincinnati's third gift touchdown of the day. For the victorious Bengals, it was a satisfying 6th straight victory on their way to the playoffs, while for the Falcons, who just 2 weeks earlier had entertained similar dreams of glory, it was a disappointing conclusion to their postseason hopes for 1975. For Coach Marion Campbell and his staff, it was a rebuilding year for the offense. To help shore up the line, a trade brought Laren Jackson from Denver. Pro Bowler Jeff Van Note remained the foundation of the line at center, while veterans Royce Smith and Dennis Havig, number 56, shared time at the guard position. The starting tackles were rookie Brent Adams and number 65, Steady Lynn Gottschalk. This mixture of youth and experience blended well in the Falcons' new-look offense, which of course was led by the newest new look in the NFL, Rookie of the Year Steve Bartkowski. Although he threw 13 touchdown passes in his injury-shortened season, Bartkowski quickly learned that being a rookie quarterback in the NFL is not exactly a bed of roses. Like all rookies, Steve Bartkowski made some mistakes. But more important, he learned from his mistakes. And sometimes he even made the opposition pay for those mistakes. Among Steve Bartkowski's various receivers in 1975, there were eager rookies, and there were accomplished veterans like number 82, Ken Burrow, the 5-year veteran with the knack for getting open. Even when he wasn't wide open, Steve Bartkowski knew he could rely on Ken Burrow for the clutch catch. As usual, offensive captain Jim Mitchell came through with his own unique style of play. Quarterbacks Dave Hampton, Haskell Stanback, and number 48, rookie Woody Thompson, caught a total of 49 passes among them. But the leading receiver for Atlanta, and the favorite deep target of all three Falcon quarterbacks, was rookie Alfred Jenkins from Hogansville, Georgia. Special teams also showed a blend of youth and experience. Place kicker Nick Mickemeyer again led the team in scoring, while John James was so proficient at punting the Falcons out of trouble that he was selected for the Pro Bowl squad. Waiting at the other end of James' punts was a sinister gang of ruffians featuring tough young hitters like Bob Jones, Rick Bias, Greg McCrary, and the man they call Captain Crazy, Fulton Kuykendall. While the offense and special teams were loaded with new names, the defense consisted mainly of familiar names. But one very familiar name was missing because the starting left end wore number 75, and his name wasn't Claude Humphrey. But the show had to go on. Sweeps had to be cut down. The opposing quarterback had to be rushed. The Falcon defenders continued to hit people, to create turnovers, to put the pressure on, all over the field. When a defense is lacking a prime ingredient like the Falcons' perennial all-pro intimidator Claude Humphrey, it becomes necessary for others to take up the slack. Seasoned veterans and unseasoned rookies must give that little something extra. The second effort that can make the difference between a touchdown pass and a sack of the quarterback by a veteran like Chuck Walker, number 79. Number 75 was rookie defensive end Jeff Merrill, who made himself right at home in enemy backfields. And when Merrill wasn't in, number 78, Roy Hilton, was. Number 74, tackle Mike Tilleman, continued to muscle his way to the heart of the matter, letting quarterbacks and footballs fall where they may. At the other defensive tackle position was one of the NFL's quickest and most underrated hitters, 5-year veteran Mike Lewis, number 69. Next to Mike Lewis was number 71, right end John Zook, who spent a good part of the season chasing down plays aimed toward the side of the field previously occupied by left end Claude Humphrey. In 1976, Claude Humphrey will be warmly welcomed back by John Zook and by all of the other members of the Atlanta defense. Among the linebackers, defensive captain Tommy Nobis was, as usual, part middle linebacker and part inspirational leader by example of the Atlanta defense. Corner linebacker Don Hanson, number 58, did his part to solidify the ever-changing left flank of the Falcon defense. The right flat was efficiently covered by ever-hustling Greg Brzezina, number 50, A man who was equally effective at nailing a receiver as he caught the ball, or a quarterback before he threw it. There were also three linebackers of the future in number 59, Carl Russ, number 55, Ralph Ortega, and the aforementioned Captain Crazy Fulton Kuykendall, number 54, who came to Atlanta in the same draft package deal with Steve Bartkowski. The defense came up with 25 interceptions, 3 of them by Ray Easterling, number 32, in his first year as a starter at strong safety. At right cornerback, Tom Hayes, number 27, picked off 4 more interceptions. Free safety Ray Brown, number 34, also had 4 interceptions, as well as some of the season's hardest hits. Perhaps the Falcons' defensive star of the year was left cornerback Rollin Lawrence, number 22, the former free agent from Tabor who set a new club record with 9 interceptions. After missing almost a month, Steve Bartkowski returned for the season's 10th game. In an unbelievable first quarter, the Denver Broncos intercepted him 3 times, sacked him 4 times, and recovered his fumble for a 7-0 lead. As the remarkably poised rookie said later, "I knew things had to start going my way. I don't live that bad." And sure enough, in the last 4 minutes of the first half, Bartkowski threw 2 touchdown passes to Alfred Jenkins, and the Falcons were ahead to stay. In the second half, Haskell Standback added 2 more touchdowns. And then in the final minute and a half, Ray Brown put on the finishing touches by intercepting 3 consecutive passes to clinch one of the NFL's wildest games of the season, 35-21. Week 11 had the Falcons back on the West Coast, where Oakland's Ken Stabler found Cliff Branch 3 times for a 21-13 lead in the first quarter. In the second quarter, Stabler appeared to be on the way to another touchdown when from out of nowhere came Rollin Lawrence, number 22. In the second half, the Raiders stretched their lead to 11 points. But Steve Bartkowski just kept bringing the Falcons back. A touchdown pass from Steve Bartkowski to number 89, wide receiver Wallace Francis, finally gave Atlanta the lead at 34-31 with just over 1 minute left on the clock. But then the miracle man, George Blanda, tied the score with just 3 seconds left. And then he untied it as time ran out in sudden death overtime. And another of the NFL's greatest games was history. Back home the next week, Steve Bartkowski bombed the Washington Redskins with the best day of his young career. 14 completions and 26 tries for 281 yards and 3 touchdowns. One of them a 67-yard spectacular to Wallace Francis. The Falcons led at the half 14-10, but in the second half, Billy Kilmer did some bombing of his own. Trailing by 10 in the fourth period, Steve Bartkowski and Alfred Jenkins once again brought the Falcons to life. A picture-perfect play-action pass to wide-open halfback Dave Hampton brought Atlanta within 3. With 61 seconds left, Nick Mickemeyer booted a 44-yard field goal, and it looked like overtime again. But this time, sudden death struck with 2 seconds left in regulation time, as the Falcons suffered their 5th last gasp defeat of the season. The next week in Atlanta's final home game, Steve Bartkowski had another Super Sunday, as for the first time in his pro career, he passed for more than 300 yards, including 2 more touchdowns to Alfred Jenkins. In their abbreviated first season together, rookies Bartkowski and Jenkins combined 38 times for 767 yards and a remarkable average of more than 20 yards per completion. In the second half, punter John James finally got to use a play he'd been practicing for 4 years. The James to Jones hookup was good for 25 yards and was topped in uniqueness only by a 41-yard scoring pass from Haskell Standback to Wallace Francis, as the Falcons again swept past San Francisco 31-9. In the season's finale in Green Bay, Dave Hampton finally broke through the 1,000-yard barrier and for the second time was voted Falcon of the Year by his teammates. Certainly no one deserved it more than the 7-year veteran from Wyoming, who got his 1,000 yards even without a big blocking fullback like Vince Kendrick, who was out for the year with injuries. Dave Hampton, the man who gained 995, then 997, then suffered through an off year due to hip surgery. No one better exemplifies the Falcons' spirit than Dave Hampton. It is solid performers like these that the Atlanta Falcons are made of, as they continue to build upon their framework for progress.